next month, and of course the rest of the schools in January 2022. Welcome to GME Extra today, and with me in studios is a Call Monday, Zima Karibu.
Asante.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
You're very good. Happy to see you and happy to have you again. Ndugu Mtuta, happy Uganda at 59.
And happy Teachers' Day.
Yes. Belated Teachers' Day. Let me start with the independence celebrations. There is news now flying here and there about a man called Lorenzo, I think, who is said to have raised Uganda's flag on that day. It's amazing. Common sense has it that, well, this man is coming after 59 years. He's coming out after 59 years. And he also comes out when Korimo Major Kanot died. He didn't, he waited for Kanot to take all the limelight until he died, and so he shows up much later. What is in this thing, Dogo? I'll start with you because it's now what people are talking about. What's so important about that, and what about if it was him or the other man? What is it?
Well, I think we need to document our history very, very well. And know who exactly did what, so that people are given the right credits. But also, of course, you know, as time flies, we also have fortune seekers who are there to tilt history in their favor, which actually may not be good. Yeah, but I think pictures are there. The pictures, we have pictures. So if it is really him, not the late Major from Kumi, then I think really the government should look at that.
The other things I think that also told about him, which false,
yes,
is that I think he was a brigadier, and there was no brigadier.
There no brigadier.
No, we did not have a brigadier
at that. Because actually, no,
they were under the King's African Rifles.
No, because by that time the highest ranking officer was Shabano Polot. At independence.
Shabano Polot.
Who was actually brigadier. We had then Amin was a colonel, I think, by that time. Yes. So if he says he was a brigadier at that time, I think really that was
there was a problem.
there was a problem somewhere.
Questionable statements and information about him. I will not be surprised that he and why now? Because I mean, Opolot has been here every other time independence
Korimo
rather every other time independence celebrated. Someone should have said, look, but he's not the right person.
You're giving my credit to somebody else.
So why do we have to see he now after the other one is dead? So I think there's a problem there, but at the same time he like they say, success has many relatives, and everyone would want to be associated with success. As having done that at the independence, that was a big thing in the limelight because it was the centerpiece of independence, and every focus, including the foreign media, was exactly that was the spot. So I don't think he's the person who was there. Personally, that's what I think. But nature doesn't allow a virtue. Someone has to come in and claim that. You remember even at but that was genuine. I think when we were celebrating 52, the man who composed the national anthem said, no, but I have not been paid. So these things come up, but also that also talks of the patriotism. If you did your part as a Ugandan, for which case, if you are a police officer, you were at that time deployed to do what you are being paid for. You don't have to own that as a person, but as a force, but also as a country. So patriotism would demand that you be proud of associating with that history, even when you are not getting the returns as an individual. To me, that will be the best claim.
If you're the president's ADC or bodyguard today, that's your responsibility.
Yes.
It's been given to you. So many years later, you can't come out to say, I'm demanding Ugandans because I was in charge of your president. But it was your duty at that time. At that time. Exactly. You were given an assignment and said...
No, but you see, lowering the Union Jack and raising the Ugandan flag, is such a historical event that really, no, it's not about being paid, but recognition. Yeah, so that really, I don't think anyone in the right senses would just disappear for all these years.
Oh, exactly.
And then at 59, that's when you're coming out.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's such a historical event that
an officer at the rank of a brigadier.
Yes,
I think all are very it's not something, it's too historical. That it can't happen and you disappear and then you show up so many years later when somebody was been claiming has actually gone or died.
Exactly.
Well, from all that vibe, let's get to independence itself. We celebrated it last week on Saturday. Of course, when you look at Africa, the continent of Africa, of course, different countries are celebrating their independence, 59, 60. Tanzania next year will be celebrating, actually this year in December, Tanzania will be celebrating 60 years of their independence. Yeah. And whenever we argue and talk about independence, people rush to talk about achievements. People rush to talk about the colonial mentality, saying, well, how independent are we if we can actually even speak English on national television? How independent are we if we are still teaching and giving instructions in English? How independent are we if we still rush to or run to our former colonial masters to get some aid, to get some money? We now with COVID here, and we're asking our former colonial masters to actually aid us with some vaccines and doing all the things to us. And the issue there is when we talk about independence, people rush to saying we are not yet independent until we possibly start doing things by our own selves. Should we justify it from that angle, Mututa?
Of course, it is true that after 59 years, last time we were discussing with a call, saying even at an ordinary level of a family, it is assumed that you are starting to have grandchildren, or you already have grandchildren, and by that time, then it means there must be a lot. You need a lot of space, but also you need a lot of facilities to be able to accommodate the expanding family. Now, those are some of the things, if you are looking at the family situation, that you are saying, oh, this man prepared for this time. Now, when you are looking at Uganda, you're also looking in Uganda in that context, that after some time, we now have the population increasing from the time we were independent. But what are the other achievements that we have used this population to? Because at a family level, if you have these grandchildren, you have this wife, and the other population you have at home, the most important thing is that how productive is this population that you have? To me, that is the most important thing. So when we are talking about the progress that the country has scored, in most cases, we are tempted to think about what has government done, which is true because government is the father of the family. But what about the individuals? Will the father be the only person in the garden and when the other children are sleeping, and then you expect to share the same? So there's also the individual contribution that as people we need to make so that our governments and economies are strong to be able to talk of the achievements that we have scored. And that is why these achievements are supposed to be looked at the basic, at the community level, and at also at the society level, but also at the national level. When you segregate that, you find that we don't only look at the national level, how much we have achieved, but also at the community level, how much we have achieved. Because there's also a saying that even what is achievable at the community level is because of the policies and influence of government at the national level. True, but again, we have also seen that government has come up with programs, but when it comes to implementation, then also have problems at the community level. So that balance is need to be factored in, so that when we are talking about the national development, let's also look at the local issues.
Let's just do the comparisons in the region. When we're getting up independence, and Tanzania, they had their rebellion of the Majimaji, Kenya had the Mau Mau. In Uganda, it was a little different, where you also noticed that at independence, you noticed that there were some communities trying to get independence from other communities. It was not really a thing of sisi yote pamoja, to say, like Mau Mau walisema, sisi yote, you know, in one fold against wale. It was, there there were collaborations and stuff like that. And two, we rush into, of course, making comparisons. When you look at a country like Tanzania, for the past 60 years, that's how they have been, not had a civil war like Uganda has been riddled with war after war. We've had governments that have lasted for just a couple of days. We've had governments that have been here for just a few months. We've had governments that have been here for a few years. In a way, let's just look at that and say, or just conclude. When we do the comparisons of do we do justice to Uganda by comparing Uganda to the other countries without really looking into how they managed, how they did it vis-a-vis the others?
Well, I think no matter what happened, it is always very good to compare yourself, because it will always guide your steps as you develop. So that comparison is very healthy. But I just wanted maybe to get back to how we got independence. Yeah, because in Kenya, of course, they had Mau Mau, but also Mau Mau was not for the whole of Kenya. Mainly it was the Kikuyu. And the Kikuyu surround Nairobi. That's why maybe it had that. But otherwise, the Jaluo were not into the rebellion. In Tanzania, when you talk about the Majimaji, those were mainly the Ngoni. The Ngoni and maybe some Wazaramo who came in to join. But also you had stubborn chiefs like Mkwawa of Uhehe. So those, but now in Uganda here, I think it's not true that people did not resist. In Bunyoro there was the Nyangira rebellion. So it is only that I don't know why historians have not really brought it out properly, but there was the serious rebellion.
No, I think the problem when it comes to Bunyoro is because the Bunyoro had given the British hell
and much about Bunyoro was really not.
So what they did was to collaborate with Buganda to neutralize the Bunyoro. No wonder when they now came, they wanted to use Buganda and punish, actually, not only use but also punish Bunyoro. And that's why they even cut part of Bunyoro into Buganda. So I think that's why the history got distorted, that by the time of independence, the rebellion had been silenced, the Bunyoro had been punished.
But also the fact that Bunyoro was far from the seat of government. So the rebellion was there, but peripheral. They looked at it as peripheral. So that's why, unlike Mau Mau, that really, that you see Kikuyu surrounds Nairobi. So definitely they felt it. Then when you look at the Majimaji, because the Majimaji also, the chief of the Wazaramo, the Wazaramo who are the inhabitants of Nairobi actually, of Dar es Salaam joined. That's why maybe it is given that. Yeah, so that really said, yes, the comparison I think is also very, very important. Now, if we want to say that Tanzania has been stable, I think let's get also to the history of Africa. That in 1963, when OAU was formed, they formed the Africa Liberation Committee, whose headquarters were in Dar es Salaam. At first Bagamoyo, of course, then. And you find that all the frontline states operated from Tanzania. So implying that the burden of liberating Southern Africa actually was on them. So it was on Tanzania. So the only country I think that has really not got into that is Kenya. And this explains why really it is the most developed country in East Africa. Because for them, immediately, there were no wars, and they switched straight to capitalism. I think that is why they are where they are, because they never got into any wars. They started cutting deals from day one until today.
Was it right for us to get independence 59 years ago? Should we have gotten it a little earlier than that or later than that?
No, I think at that time we must understand what was at play, because the colonialists did not give us independence just because they wanted. There were a number of internal and external factors. Now, on their part, the cost of running the colony was actually high. And all they wanted was, how do they reduce on the cost of running these colonies, but economically remain benefiting, so that their cotton, their coffee could still be moving. So that was one. Secondly, the Second World War there was the balance of power between France and England, and Britain had been now swept away by newcomers, USA and Russia. So and now the USA had come with their success story because they had even fought for their own independence against the British. So that alone was motivating the Africans. So there were a number of issues that these people did not let go just because they loved Africans, no. And that is why we actually handed over power in most cases to people without training them, because I think it came as an abrupt thing. They had to look here, let us make sure that, because now you look at some countries, like in the Horn of Africa, where you had British Somalia, and then the other Somalia that was part of Italy, that was given now as a mandate state to Britain. You see how Britain very much wanted to let go, and you realize that most countries that were given as mandate states got their independence earlier. Yeah. Yes, because these people were not ready to take over a burden that was not theirs. That's why in East Africa, Tanzania, that was a mandate state, got their independence earlier. Okay, Uganda, that was a protectorate, followed, but their colony, Kenya, came a little bit late because for them they had really invested their efforts there. Yeah. So this is how it was.
The issue of economics also played out, because, for example, Uganda had become expensive to run, and in Rwanda they had to divide some of the parts to pay for some of those costs. So when you look at the company which was formed to administer Uganda, the British Iberia company, it ran actually bankrupt, and there was no money to manage. So part of the problem was that, no, let's leave it, because we are not getting much as what we were expecting, and then Africans could govern themselves. But like I said, it is also the issue of who takes over from there, because they also needed to have foot on the independent states, so that they are still kept, their interests are still safe within Africa. I think has taken a long time to get rid of. Okay. But at the same time, for those who think we got independence earlier than we ought to, I think I don't think that's also something to even think about, because I mean, did we need to be colonized in the first place? We should have been helped to build our capacity. I was telling people that, and from the history, that the first cesarean operation in the world was actually performed in Uganda. And the British had to come and learn from these women how they could operate a woman. Two things: save the life of a mother, but also save the life of a child. So when the British doctors came and studied, in fact, in Britain, they had done all the cesarean operations they had done were a failure, 100%. But this was a successive story. Now, these are some of the things I think after independence we have not talked about, or have not developed to see what was happening under that primitive society, that we could have that advancement that could save a life at that. And not only that, we had surgeons who were operating animals if they fall sick, and even other operations that when people fall sick. But because of that, and of course the religious factor also, when we began believing that whatever was being practiced by Africans was divulged, and then what came with the whites was the right thing. That also set us a step back. But independence was necessary. The only thing that maybe we can talk about is then what happened when we got this self-governance, with the type of leadership. Okay, that's maybe the question that can be asked.
Well, thank you so much for that particular one. Now we get back to of course, where and how independence started on the continent of Africa. We'll rush to Ghana, look at Ghana. And we have used Ghana as an anchor state in many of the things that we do. We've emulated their democracies. We've talked about them. They just held an election recently. We've seen them, and we look at Ghana and say, yes, things in Ghana actually working, maybe the way we think they should be working. In Ghana, there's what they call the National Commission for Civic Education. It's a government body, the National Commission for Civic Education, which is mandated to teach the citizenry, to teach the citizens about civic matters and civic issues, and the patriotism, the nationalism, that the Africanism in them, and quite a number of things. Recently in Uganda, actually in this particular year on a Heroes Day, we also launched an initiative called the National Initiative of Civic Education, and fortunately we benchmarked that in Ghana. When we're celebrating independence at 59, the theme there was celebrating 59 years of independence as we secure the future through a national mindset change. Now, we just need to understand. What we mean with that, because today, when you talk about independence, the first thing that will come is we'll forget about all the other things and say, but how are we independent with all these debts? How are we independent when we have graduates who do not have jobs? How are we independent when we have, the issues will be, we'll try to water down our independence simply because Akola and Mututu and Semakola do not have that and that and that. Ndugu Akol, on national mindset change. What needs to be done? How should we, as Ugandans, embrace independence and say, I do not believe in this particular party ideology, I do not believe in this particular leader, but there is a country called Uganda, and because it is Uganda, I want you to note, Tono Wana tweeted to say, whether what or what, every year on the 9th of October, Uganda gets another year, plus. There's another +1 to it. Whether you want it or not, whether you live here or not, whether you move out of this country and go somewhere else, you will hear that in Uganda now, next year, at such a time, we'll be talking about Uganda at 60.
Yes.
What needs to be done to go call?
Well, the advantage is that we have a whole Ministry of National Guidance, and I think it is within their mandate, it is their responsibility to really champion the national mindset change. Indeed, we need to, there's a lot of, we need a lot of efforts in changing the mindset of Ugandans. Ugandans are among the people in the world who are very hospitable, very welcoming, but again, with very low patriotism. That it is not easy to find somebody from Rwanda out there talking ill about Rwanda. It's not easy. That somebody has come from Rwanda as maybe as a delegation, maybe to any conference, it's not easy to find them really. Secondly, they will not leave that country before they pay katasekol at their embassy. Yeah, but in Uganda, I've seen situations where you go out, no one even bothers to know where the embassy is, and the next day on the plane and you're back. No one has bothered to know where the embassy is, perhaps pay courtesy call to the ambassador, and these are situations we've seen. At the Dubai Expo, a country that came third, but if you look at what is happening on social media, you would imagine that Uganda would come last. And they are praising countries that
it is some other countries out there
yes.
who are trying to remind us
yes.
that we're one of the best.
We are one of the best. But all the information coming from within is actually to the contrary. So these are issues that we need, I think, as a country, that at 59, no matter what, this is our country, Uganda. Whether you disagree with NRM,
but how did we even get there? How did we first and foremost get to where we are, that we speak ill about our own country? Because something could have happened. Yes, I am a son of the late engineer Henry Semakola, and I am a son to Nadia Namukasa Chiwanuka. They're my parents. How come? Where does it start for me to castigate my own mother casket my own father, casket my own family. It ought to have started somewhere before being reminded that, you remember, she's your mother. You need to respect your mother. You need to do these good things to your mother. You need to acknowledge as your mother. You need to praise as your mother. You need to remind the people that even when you're working on TV and you're speaking very good English, but she's still your mother. What went wrong, and how did we in the first place get to a level of you go to a meeting somewhere in the city square or in a square somewhere and actually casket your own mother? Your neighbors are talking good about your mother, but you actually never talk every ill and bad about your mother. Where did it even begin before we even talk about how to reverse and change it?
No, I think the problem is our history.
Exactly.
Our history accounts for this, because now, for example, in Kenya, that nationalism you see is that Kenyatta was given time around 15 years to build that nationalism that is there. He really tried hard to make sure that he destroys these tribal groupings. Moi, when he came in, it was Fatanyai. They had an orderly succession, and you see, that is how they've managed to build it. Though their nationalism is always tested during elections, when they get back to, but after that they come back as
they're
Kenya.
warming up.
Yes,
they're warming up for August next year.
Yes.
They are just
so
they're putting on their
now,
boots.
when you go to Tanzania, Nyerere really had all the time to build a nation.
Exactly.
About 24 years, and after 24 years, he, even in retirement, he had the chance to supervise what the project he had started until he died. Now here in Uganda, we've not had that chance. That at the beginning, already there was, and I think also the tricky part that in Uganda, because the British kind of favored Buganda, that at the time of independence, Buganda was already a state within a state. And not only a state within a state, but one of the most developed ethnic group, not only in Uganda, but I think on the continent. Yes, because the first good schools were here in Uganda, in Eastern Central Africa. So it was such at an advantaged position that at one time they felt that they should not carry the burden of other countries. They should get their own independence as Uganda. So the problem is that right from...
Is it a leadership problem?
No, I think it was one. Partly it is our history. Of course, the leaders that came in at independence, and
did we rush to push them out?
The quarrels that came in, and then currently, I think also when it comes to the NRM government, why it has not also helped to build that, is that the concentration was on peace and liberties for people. That now when you give people a lot of liberty, because things to do with the patriotism, it has to be fatanyayo. Yes, you have to, there must be a whip. You have to whip the people to follow that.
I seem to agree with you on that particular one. When you go to Zambia, for example, you notice that the levels of patriotism in Zambia are higher than ours here. Trying to attribute it to the stay of Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere and maybe Dr. Keke in Zambia. Recently, I think under the ambit of the UNESCO, they sponsored some educational materials, writing of books for. I think we're changing their curriculum actually in Zambia. And many of the authors that they go to work like Ugandan authors. But Zambians go to a level of saying, yes, we accept, give us the material, write us the books, but don't write your name on our books. Yeah. You can't say this book was authored by Jagan Semakula, a Ugandan. Do the writing, but please write our names. Write Kalaba, write Christopher Katongo, write our Zambian names. And this is what they were. They were saying yes, because so many years later, we don't want our children to come into our libraries and they're picking books that were written by Ugandans. Exactly. They're good books, yes. But they got that level. Now, they have issues when it comes to the politics. We just saw them recently when we saw Hichilema and Lungu taking on one another. But on matters of Zambia, they actually remember we are Zambians, and this is to us. In Ndugu Mututa, we talk about mindset change. What's the problem, and why, how did you even get here today to talk about mindset? And we talk about an exercise that we will not change in a year or 2 years or even 10 years. I don't think it's something that we can rush and say the mindset now is realigned to what we think it should be.
As Ugandans, we can disagree on many things, on anything, which is okay, but also need to agree on also many things. And this is what I've been saying, that you can have your own opinion as a politician, as a civil servant, as a Ugandan, and you are entitled to it. But at the end of it, what brings us together? What belongs us to closer? Last time I was saying it is rare that you have seen people, members of the opposition in Uganda, going for independence. It is like that the independence has now turned like it is a government function, which is not true. Because like this particular case, I was informed that even invitations were sent to people in the opposition to come and participate. But I think most of them...
The most visible opposition is in Parliament.
Yeah.
And members of Parliament, all of them as members of Parliament were actually invited. And in Kololo, they actually put seats there for them.
Yes.
They put seats there for them. Except a few pockets from the opposition, the Honorable Aken and others, the rest shunned it. They didn't come because it's an interim event.
So to me, if we are talking about the mindset, we start from there. When the Ugandan flag is being raised, what runs into our minds? In fact, until even up to now, in Kenya, when a national flag is being raised, then they find you sitting on your stool in the next shop veranda. You will have trouble. When the national flag is being raised and you are driving, you stop. When it's being actually, they blow the whistle to alert you that they are going to. These are smaller things that make a lot of sense in the lives of people. Because when for the American flag, it is a living thing. You touch it, you are shot. There is no compromise about it, because it embodies the lives of the people of America, those living and the dead. But for us, some of the things, we take them lightly. I've seen a flag of Uganda being abused. You find it wrapped on car bonnets because they're carrying a dead body. I mean, that's an abuse, for heaven's sake.
Isn't that patriotism?
No. It's the regard with which we carry our flag as a symbol of the nation. It has more. It needs more respect than that. You see, you find it wrapped on the vehicle, and they are running and throwing the mud about it. I think that is wrong, and I think I need to write my book about how some of the things. But when you look at that we need to disagree on a number of issues that we need to, but we need also to agree that on the number of issues that this country has moved on. Now, part of the problem, like I said, has been our history. When you found clans fighting one another, tribes fighting one another, so if the next leader came from one of the tribes, then the other tribes will either send that person or they will ask. Now, even up to today, when you look at the cabinet, then say, how many Catholics are there? How many Protestants are there?
Muslims.
What about us Muslims? So this is the mindset that we need to look at. Are we still in our smaller cocoons as small individuals, or we are moving on as a country and together? It doesn't matter who is here, whether it is Mututa, whether it's Jagenda, whether it is Akol. The most important thing is, are we getting the services that our people need to have? If we can reach that level, I think we can even talk of a mindset that we'll have achieved. For now, as long as we still remain in some of these elite groups, in the social groups, in the traditional groups, I think we still have a problem. Okay. But I think so far, so good that we have moved to that level, that some of the things are being addressed, especially when you look at the movement administration and the number of programs that have been put in place, and the number of the plans that are in place. I think we are so far moving in the right direction, but we need all the political players and all the key players on board so that we can move as a
mindset to me, it was the catchword for this particular independence. Celebrating 59 years, so we secure our future through national mindset change. There is a young man, I think, who lives in the UK or US, thereabout, a Ugandan scientist called Chirunda. I think it's called Emmanuel Chirunda. He wrote a book called The Fourth Estate, The Fourth Heritage, not Estate, The Fourth Heritage. And it is his autobiography. He gives a story. I think he was born in Luoka, somewhere in Busoga. He comes from that very humble background to becoming one of the best oil experts in the world. He is called Chirunda. He's one of the best oil experts that the world actually talks about or celebrates. Now, in his book, The Fourth Heritage, he actually tries to address the issue of mindset by saying we cascade first and foremost the type of education that we have and say, look at us, 59 years later still have this bad education. But he says the same people who brought this education that is failing us are the same people who brought to us that religion. And when it comes to matters of religion, none of us actually castigates religions. We seem to praise religion every other day. You know,
we sleep in churches praying.
We sleep in churches praying. We've had problems now of attending church and doing all the things too, and you could see how we could come out to actually say, why aren't we worshiping? Why aren't we doing all the things too? Now, the same people who gave us this education that we think is failing us are the same people who gave us this religion that we think has actually brought us closer to God. Why is the problem? Akol.
No, of course, that is now the issue of the mindset and also selective apportioning of blame. That every other time there is a crisis, you feel it is others. You feel it is others, not you. So it's a question of looking within. And as I said, that, you know, issues of national values, patriotism, it is not something that you will use human rights and liberty to enforce. There, it should always be strictly following yes, the laid out principles. Yes, and in those countries where really patriotism has been enforced, is that the punishment to one going contrary to the national values is always severe, that people actually, out of that fear, eventually. Let's get to the old, the African setting. Because some old man told me that how they used to preserve the environment, how they used to actually make sure that the environment is preserved, that whenever they would plant a tree, they would tell that if you want to cut a tree, you first have to consult the gods, the Misambo. Now, of course, a clan had like, a whole family had like one person who would actually talk to them.
So on their behalf.
On their behalf. So by the time you come to talk to to that person, and maybe by the time he also gives
devise the means.
By the time also gives you the permission, you mean another that process alone, it is still saving the tree. That's how they used to save the environment. They would also tell you that no, look here, you must keep goats or something at home, so that when the spirit of death comes, instead of killing a person, it goes with it can either take an animal. But indirectly they were trying to tell people that at least own some wealth, own some property.
Yeah, before you cut a tree, you have to bring a goat.
Yes, so those are some of the things that is how they preserved their. In other words, you'd look at it, they would attach it to the gods because they knew that people feared the wrath of the what? Of the gods. No one wanted to annoy the gods. So you say, okay, if it's to do with the gods, so that is how they managed to preserve the environment. That is how they got people working. Now, when we think that we shall enforce patriotism by this, the liberty we have here and the human rights, I think that's where we get it wrong. Yes.
Because it's my right not to maybe attend a national function. It's my right not to. And why I'm actually tough on this is you notice that one choir member who can sing all these hymns in this particular hymn book fails to sing a national anthem which is only 3 stanzas, and when you combine the 3 stanzas, you have only 1 minute and a few seconds. The first stanza of the national anthem of Uganda is, I think, only 20 seconds. But you find the same person who sings a whole hymn
book
from this hymn book,
yes.
you know, hymn after hymn,
yes.
hymn after hymn,
Yes.
hymn after hymn, failing to sing just the national anthem. And we keep wondering, do these national symbols, do these things that actually identify us? Now we're putting on Ugandan colors. If we moved out of Viam and went somewhere, you know, maybe at the airport or anywhere, somebody will look at you and identify and say, oh, this person is either Ugandan or from Uganda. You know, if you met another person putting on colors representing the country, you wouldn't want to know their name, but you would actually say, oh, this man is actually a Tanzanian or he's from Tanzania. Something like that. Do these national symbols also help us to develop? Are we utilizing them? Have we used them? Or we think somebody is supposed to help us manage these things?
We're still struggling with the issue of national service, where younger people are supposed to be indicted in the national service of the country as one of the ways of building a strong backup of patriotism, of patriotic Ugandans who will definitely end up in public service, who will end up in the army, who will end up in police. I think there's a lot of disagreement because some people think that that's going to be political and it's going to support, it's going to give extra support to the government in power. I don't know, sometimes we think there should be no government. But at the same time, to me, that will be one of the ways, of the best ways of building a society that is aware about the political environment, and the patriotism will be so key. We have seen this happen in other countries. Now, for me, I would still think that will be one of the best ways. But also the other thing is that the leaders should lead by example. That when you are not there, people still can talk about you for the good things that you have done, for the good advice that you have given. Now, in most cases, and a lot of some, we have had the disappointment of some of the leaders that we have had, either at the local level, at the national level, and that's why we're crippling with the past of this country, that at some point all the things we were talking about were happening, but what happened? That these abrupt changes caused us all this, and we have gone back a number of ages into that. So I think it's a high time to allow this open discussion, but also look at things that can build us, to put us together as a country and also people, so that we can be proud of our country. When we were having independence, someone was asking me, an American friend, said, I thought today was your independence. I'm like, yes. He said, but I cannot even see a flag in any window or doorway.
Exactly.
What is happening? Because we are supposed to be proud of ourselves. We are supposed to fly flags
in homes.
In homes,
yes.
to show that today is a public holiday and it's our independence. Now, when you talk, people say, for us we have problems. No. These problems are not going to stop.
Because even if you don't fly the flag, the
problem is not going to go away.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things.
And you don't fly the flag to take away the problem.
Exactly. But it's because of lack of that national service that brings us together.
Okay.
Partly why we even don't know that. I don't know how many people in this country, even those in the civil service and even those in the political offices, have flags in their homes. If you did that inspection, you'll find not many.
To find out.
Exactly.
Exactly. Ndugu Akol, our time is actually running out, but when you join the forces, you take an oath. When you come into the civil service, you take an oath. When you get into positions of leadership, that's why we talk about swearing in ceremonies, where the president takes oath. Now, the president takes oath. Cabinet ministers do the same. Members of parliament do the same. All the other government officials do the same. When I was just being inducted in scouting, many years ago in primary school, we also had the scouts oath that we used to do. And keep reciting that because I was a scout for some time. And I think I am a scout forever. But we had an oath that we could take as Boy Scouts. But I think it was the same with the Girl Guides. I not know, but as a Boy Scout, we had, that promise that we made. On my own, I promised that I'll do my best to do my duties to God and my country, to help other people at all times, and to obey the Scouts law. Now, we could be reminded that all the time, whatever, anything that you do, they say, no, a Scout doesn't do that. And you remember that there is a promise, there is an oath that you actually took. Would it be prudent if we are talking about national mindset change? It also make Uganda take an oath of sorts, that somebody will actually swear an oath to protect, defend Uganda, and apart from talking about it politically, we remember the constitution when we are electioneering, and say Article 1 says all power belongs to the people. We keep remembering that during campaigns. After campaigns, we throw all our constitutions. Do we have to get levels of swearing oaths?
Well, the level of swearing, because even in schools, when you're joining a school, you take an oath. So, but the question is, how much value do you attach?
I sit in court.
Yeah.
Nothing but the truth.
Yes. So, in other words, how much value, or perhaps how serious do we take the oath is something that we need to really understand. But I just need to get back to what you talked about. You see, I don't know why we don't learn from the best practices of the kings we had in Uganda, especially here in the Interlacastrian region. I've always told people that the national service was here before independence. Actually, during Kabalega's time, why Kabalega built a very strong army. Kabalega's army, they were called the Abarusura.
Abarusura.
Yes, every able-bodied young man in Bunyoro, he was supposed to be a Marusura. There was no question about it. And that is why they gave Sir Samuel Baker hard time.
But they will still tell you the same thing.
And that is why during his time, Kabalega's time, the level of patriotism among the Banyoro was very high.
Yes. Similarly, that's why they'll tell you levels of patriotism when you go to the forces. You could have a few hiccups here and there. You could have a few inerrant leaders. Just like it is in religion. There's what they call the Apostles' Creed. I do believe in this, I do believe in the Holy Catholic Church, I do believe in this, I do believe in this. And you get to a level where you say, okay, here I am, very independent in Kampala, in Uganda, in wherever. But the Pope, who does not live here, has actually said this. And you honor that because there is some particular oath that you took to belong to that religion.
And to respect the leadership.
And to respect.
Yes.
You will want to do anything, you feel this, but you'll say, no, I took oath as a Muslim. The Shahada that I actually took, once I say this is the Shahada, so I will not listen to any other thing. When you say God has a son, I will say no, because the Shahada that I took does not allow me to actually believe in that. And people get with that. Now, even when you get a few people here, you meander, you veer from the Nyayo, but you still come back to the fold. Yet, for Uganda, for example, like you said, how many of us have flags in our homes? How many of us have all the things in our homes? I have 2 shilling notes in my possession. A 20,000 shilling note and a 2,000 shilling note, written on in very thick ink, vote their candidate. Where do you find that in the world? If you just took a dollar bill to any forex bureau and it has just a small blot of ink on it. Yes, exactly.
No,
they will say, no, we don't have, but you take a $100 bill and this is 300,000, 400,000 shillings. Somebody writes somebody receives a call in a taxi as they're going to Entebbe or they're going to Mukono, and NASA is giving them a number and they say, oh, Linda Katono. Then they'll pull out the note and write the number 077 on a shilling note.
On a shilling note.
That kind of level. What needs to be done? Because I think we talk about a big monster, but let's just wind up because our time is up. We only have 2 minutes.
Well, I must say that Uganda is our country, and we should do all we should protect it. I was watching some clip somewhere by late Magufuli. He was actually saying that everyone is temporary, but Tanzania
is
permanent. So we should all understand that Uganda, all of us, we are temporary, but Uganda is permanent, and therefore whatever we are doing, we should contribute to building a permanent Uganda.
Because there was a Magufuli sometime in Tanzania. The Magufuli is not there anymore, but there's a country called Tanzania.
Continuing.
And Tanzania continues. Ndugu Mtuta, your final remarks.
We need to look at things that bring us together mostly, because we don't only have to criticize every other time. Someone was sending him a message on WhatsApp saying, you are saying Uganda was number 3, but it was only number 3 in the naming of stalls, not the...
So they were counting stalls.
Exactly.
Which one was the first?
So these are smaller things.
So
really.
somebody is contending with that. We shouldn't be number 3. If we're number
exactly.
3, we're possibly number 3 in just somebody could even say alphabetically.
In number.
In position in the stalls.
Yeah. So, but we need to graduate beyond that. We need to be proud of ourselves as a society. We need to be proud of ourselves as Ugandans. I think we have a lot of discussion on that, but it's a healthy discussion that we need to undertake.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. I call Mandy Amazima and James Mututa here. Thank you so much for Good Morning Uganda Extra on this particular day. Just still carrying on with the celebrations of Uganda at 59. Now, to just remind you that today are the celebrations of the National Teachers Day. This ought to have happened on the 5th, but they decided to have their celebrations today. Now, these celebrations will be at the Independence Grounds in Kololo, and UBC TV promises this will be coming live to you from wherever you are. Let's continue loving and cherishing this country called Uganda. Now, for those of you who have another country, this possibly may not be you, but we who have only Uganda as the place that we call home or country, we need to do anything to make it habitable for us, for God and my country, Uganda, and we'll continue saying God bless Uganda. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.